to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear. My name is GoodGameBro, and I'm just here to remind you that if you have not given us a 5-star rating on your favorite app, what is wrong with you? And also, you're probably below 5 feet tall. That's just a personal thing I'm going to put out there. Mills may or may not believe that, but it's kind of where we are. Right now, getting ready to kick the show off. And again, I'm GoodGameBro, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, which is also the guy over there with the sock as a hand puppet. And it's not McFoley, it's Mills, my incredible co-host. How are you?
The Mick Foley thing's got to go away. They actually have a new nickname for me, and this is not good, okay? They're calling me Mick Wick. They're calling me the Mick Foley version of John Wick because I have such an affinity for John Wick in the movie. There's even a tweet on my timeline right now that I quote tweeted that has a picture of Mick Foley plus Keanu Reeves, and then it equals me. I'm going to be very clear with you. This picture is slander, and I will be looking to get a lawsuit in. Obviously, the person who put this picture up is under 5 feet and not worthy of the Overplayed podcast time.
That person would be a better co-host than you. Also, you retweeted it. You're co-signing it, and I'm looking at it right now on my phone. It's accurate. You are the love child of Mick Foley and John Wick. That's not like a bad thing, at least part of it.
I have two options here, okay? I can grow the beard or I could shave it off. And I'm pretty sure you've seen me. We've known each other for long enough. I think you've seen the baby-faced Mills, okay? Listen, I'm hiding a very weak chin. This is not Vince McMahon in here, okay? I probably have a bigger overbite than I have a chin at this point. So I'm just letting you know the beard is here to stay, and we're not going to call me Mick Foley anymore. I'm much closer to John Wick. I'm much cooler than that, okay? I'm cooler. Not that saying Mick Foley isn't cool, but like you guys are taking swings at me about this. I'm tired of it, community. I'm tired of it Overplayed.
Hey, I get it. I will no longer call you Mick Foley. Whatever you need to feel better about yourself, Mr. Sacco. I got you, man.
What? Whatever. You know what? That's fine. Okay, because I'm sure that whatever I've been doing this week is much more interesting than what you've been doing. So go ahead. What has GGB been up to in his ivory tower? Where his Facebook gaming setup is, where he shoots to the stars, and Facebook has put him into this beautiful place of success that he just sits up above all of us peasants.
Look at all of
it. Look at all of it.
I'm looking around because I don't.
It's got a great view. He keeps off camera so no one can see just how plush it is.
I hate everything. No, this week has been good, man. I got my secret project I've been working on for a while is almost ready to be unveiled. I'm probably going to talk about it this weekend, so can't talk about it just yet. But essentially, I love charity work and giving back to people. And I've been working on a project back from my hometown that like finally was able to sort of all get put together. So that was a huge thing for me. And then I've definitely had like a honey-do list recently because the weather's getting warm. So my wife is like, yo, we got to do X, Y, and Z. And so that's kept me super busy. So really I've done like, I'm like a dad. I am a dad.
You are
literally
actually a dad.
But I've just been doing like dad things. So now I'm realizing that you're probably right, and I haven't done anything important. So
it's funny because you have a honey-do list, and my list involves me getting to the size of a cantaloupe, and shape as well. So we're actually similar in that. No, most of what I've been doing is gaming. As I've talked about before, hard into my team. There is a game called Loop Hero. And can I just tell you?
I heard about it.
So it's by Devolver Digital, who just doesn't miss.
Incredible.
Everything Devolver Digital does is gold. It is literally just a loop. Your knight goes in a loop, or it's either a knight or a necromancer. You have different classes. It is a rogue-like loop game where you get gear and you have to level up and finish bosses. But at the same time, you're building your village up with the resources you get in every loop. And the more you build your village up, the more resources you have during the fights, the better weaponry you have. And then you pick more weaponry up as you go, more skills, more talents. It is the most addicting thing I have played this year. If Hades was game of the year for 2020 for me, Loop Hero right now is game of the year just for that. I want to just one more loop. And then this week, I've touched on it a little bit. We're going to play it on stream a little bit later this week, but Watchdogs Legion is back.
Oh, the multiplayer.
Yeah, their multiplayer dropped yesterday. Now, on PC, it's been delayed till March 23rd altogether. They had a game-breaking bug, and to their credit, they came out and said, hey, look, we're not putting this out in this state. We need a couple more weeks for this. They put it out on console, and then there's an option called TAC Ops, which for console, which is also coming out on March 23rd, which is a 4-player, like, against the co-op against the computer, which is supposedly you can put it as hard as you want. It's supposed to be fun. But the online co-op is the same thing as the offline. You're still recruiting an army. You're still recruiting a DedSec army together, which you can swap out at any time as long as you're not under surveillance. You can co-op with other people to do missions. It reminded me of why I've loved Watchdogs to start with. And Watchdogs came out at probably the single worst time you can come out as a video game. And it's that in October to December kind of like just death roll of games that are trying to hit the not only next gen, but trying to hit the Christmas holiday. So I am going to be trying more of that. It is a free update for anyone that has Watchdog Legions. It does not have crossplay, which that hurts it so much, but it does have cross-generation play. So like Xbox One can play with Xbox Series X, and PlayStation 4 can play with PlayStation 5. Just another wish, by the way, is that crossplay. I know we talk about it all the time. Crossplay has got to become a standard. And I know Ubisoft is getting better about that. This was probably the last game they have that doesn't do crossplay with everything, but it just shows how much that hurts when like I play on Xbox and I have friends that play on PlayStation or PC and we can't play together. So other than that, farming Outriders. I cannot get enough Outriders.
You're still playing. It's a demo, right?
It's a demo. Yes, it's a demo. And all I'm doing is farming gear to be ready for April 1st, man. It is so much fun. Even the combat, like playing the different 4 classes, but I've been playing Trickster. I went through the 4 classes. I went back to Trickster. I'm having so much fun with it that once April 1st, and we get that 60 plus hours of content, I can't wait. I cannot wait. You have no idea how excited I am for this game.
I need to try it out. I haven't touched the demo yet. It's all like my things to do, but I just like haven't for whatever reason.
It's tough,
but it looks cool.
It feels like game wise, we're really getting back into that. Like a lot of games coming out, especially April. May is flush with games right after MLB The Show comes out. I mean, which both of us are obviously interested in, but like Deathloop comes out in May. The new Resident Evil comes out in May.
Oh yeah.
Far Cry comes out in May. There's a whole list I have on my little Millthology that I can follow around. So it is deadly just how many games come out like so close together.
It's exciting though. I mean, I think we've been in a lull for a minute now, so I'm at the point. I think a lot of people are that play games, right? You're itching for a new experience. Like I've been putting in a dumb amount of hours in Warzone, and I love Warzone minus the hackers. But I'm definitely itching for I want a good single player experience. Far Cry is really the one that I'm excited for. Gustavo being there too, like that to me is going to be like I definitely want to jump into it from seeing Gus in there. So I'm excited for some single player stuff and a little bit of multiplayer out there too.
Cool. What do we have in this week's episode so far? We've got we're full. It's a lot of quick hits in This Week in Sports, a lot of quick hits in sports gaming. Tell the people what they're about to hear.
Oh man, we got some great stuff. Obviously the NFL, big contract coming through from a quarterback that some people believe he deserves, some people believe that he did not deserve, but I'm 100% going to be here to tell you why he deserved that contract and why it was a good deal for both sides. We've got an NBA player saying something incredibly terrible and then an apology that is, we'll touch on why we don't think that apology was necessarily the greatest here. Blake Griffin, Balake going to the Nets. I think Mills, you might have actually predicted that, if I remember correctly, or maybe one of the teams you mentioned. But Blake Griffin now moving. We're talking about March Madness and why no one on the planet is excited for March Madness.
I'm sorry, what is March Madness like?
Exactly. And then into gaming, we've got a ton of stuff going on with NBA 2K, Retromania, MLB The Show has a big update coming tomorrow for us, but today for you that are listening now, if you're listening day of, and then Ultimate Rivals, the court with Tim Kitzrow. If you don't know who Tim Kitzrow is, he's on fire. Just a little bit of a hint for you.
Shakalaka. There we go. Yeah, so let's start it off with This Week in Sports. Dak Prescott, something that a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans were worried about. I'm pretty sure the front office was worried about as well. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, they avoid the franchise tag by agreeing to a 4-year, $160 million deal. $126 million of that is guaranteed, $75 guaranteed in year 1. This assures that the Cowboys will have Prescott for the next 4 years. It immediately, for me, well, we'll talk about what I think about the deal in a second, but just for the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, the Cowboys now can focus on building around a franchise quarterback. There were a lot of people that thought maybe the Cowboys would trade up if they were to franchise tag Dak Prescott. By the way, it would have been $37 million to franchise tag Dak Prescott. And we talked about this in weeks past, and it would have been the last year Dak Prescott was in Dallas. Talk to me about what you think for Dak's side of this. Let's start with Dak's side of this. What does this do for Dak in the NFL and with the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, this is an absolute W for Dak Prescott and his family. When Dak came out from Mississippi State, he was about a second round pick, I think, roughly.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and people sort of had like mixed, bag on him. And honestly, I did too. The most I knew about Dak Prescott was the fight, obviously, when he was on camera where he had ultimately lost that fight. I didn't really have a ton of info on him outside of like, oh, he's a solid quarterback, but no one I really had high expectations for. But I think anyone who, if you were honest with yourself of what you thought of him at draft to where he is now, he has blown expectations out of the water. For Dallas in their quarterback situation, they tried to go without Dak, right? They had Andy Dalton. They had Ben DiNucci. Shout out to James Madison University. They had the Cooper. I don't know, who was the other guy? Cooper Rush or something? I don't even know who the other guy.
Does it matter?
Yeah, no idea.
The fact that you don't remember his name says all you need to know about any of the Cowboy quarterbacks.
Exactly. And not only was their passing game absolutely abysmal when people thought that Andy Dalton was going to be potentially the answer, even I thought he'd be an okay stopgap, but their running game was terrible. You had Zeke, who is, from what we assume, one of the best running backs in the NFL talent-wise, did nothing last year. Absolutely nothing. So for me, this is a major deal for Dak. He gets the financial security that he needs. He now can, come back without having to worry about like, oh, am I going to be playing on another 1 year, franchise tag and having to worry about what if he gets injured again or if what if he doesn't come back as strong? Like, he has a financial security. He can focus on recovery. He can focus on being to the quarterback that he wants to be and a little bit better. This is a gigantic W for him. And it's also from a salary cap standpoint for the Cowboys. It's not bad. After year one, again, you mentioned 75 mil in total money year one. They're going to be on the hook for like 28 to 30 million roughly per year. If you look across the board at what other quarterbacks are being paid from his production level, they're right in line or under. So again, they got their franchise quarterback for mostly long term at a great number.
They have their franchise quarterback. They have a very good offensive line when it's healthy. They have 3 top flight receivers in Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, his second year in the league. They have Ezekiel Elliott, and let's not forget, they also have Tony Pollard backing up Ezekiel Elliott, who has shown a lot of flash. That team was on pace to break passing records in the first 4 weeks of the season before Dak Prescott went down. Dak Prescott is not just a star for them. He is the star for them. That is the one player on the field that the Dallas Cowboys cannot live without. And they showed that this past year. We have talked about this multiple times before. We talked about this with Deshaun Watson. We talked about this with Patrick Mahomes when he was injured. Anytime you have a top flight quarterback, he is the most important thing to your roster, okay? That is the guy that gets you to the Super Bowl. Your defense might carry you through the regular season, okay? But you do not get to the Super Bowl on defense alone. It is a very few and far between situation. Dak Prescott is not only a very good quarterback, he is a top quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback. You could argue he's a top 7 quarterback in the league. They are immediately the favorites in the NFC East now if he's healthy. They are immediately a top maybe 3 seed in the NFC with him healthy, especially beating up on the NFC East right now. Who else is coming close to them? The Rams and the Buccaneers. Maybe the Packers. I believe less in the Packers every day. I hear their front office, and every day we hear more and more about Aaron Rodgers and everything's going on there. Seattle.
Why do you hate Rodgers so much?
Well, I'm sorry. Why do I hate Rodgers so much? Because he's a crybaby. That's what Aaron Rodgers is. There's a reason they drafted. I will say this again. There's a reason he drafted Jordan Love. All right. There's a reason they draft so much defense on that team. Like, have you noticed that? They haven't drafted majorly to the offensive side in almost 10 years.
What did the Patriots do? Patriots did the same thing. Patriots drafted so many quarterbacks and they traded all of them. And they drafted all those defensive players.
They don't draft first round quarterbacks, though. They drafted Jordan Love in the first round when they had Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, end of the first round. I don't care if it was end of the first round. You drafted a quarterback at the end of the first round. That's enough when you had serious needs that could have been filled there. You can blame the front office there, but I truly believe they didn't think Aaron Rodgers would be back or thought they needed some kind of backup plan to be like, hey, Aaron, you can leave. We have a quarterback here if we need to.
I mean, Rodgers hates them, but yeah, I get you.
Rodgers, I don't think, again, this is my bias. Whatever you say, whatever you want, I don't think Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers get along very much. All of that being said, let's not get into that rant too far, but Dak Prescott, you have the Packers. The Seahawks are in shambles right now. They're going to get rid of Russell Wilson at some point, maybe to the Bears, and the Bears elevate themselves. The Bears become the number one seed in the NFC North with Russell Wilson. So you have the Bears, the Cowboys, the Rams, and the Buccaneers. Like, that's pretty much your 4 division winners right there. And I don't think the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, they can beat any one of those teams. They can beat any one of those teams, including with Tom Brady, with Levante David back on the field with them, with re-signing him. So again, this Dak Prescott deal means so much to the Cowboys. I'm glad Dak got his bag, but the Cowboys now can settle any of these rumors, any of these worries, and go to the draft worrying about building around a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm excited for him. I'm really excited to see what the movement does now, because now, the Dak, I mean, I think people thought maybe he goes somewhere. I didn't really feel like he had a big chance to go. It felt like a very slim chance for him to go somewhere else. But, the NFC, I think, again, Dallas definitely at worst a top 3 team on paper right now. In the NFC, the only thing that changes that for me is if Deshaun Watson jumps to like the 49ers, right?
Right, yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, that defense is too good. I bumped Dallas down a little bit there, but overall, it's a fantastic move for them.
Yep, and to be clear here, if the Deshaun Watson deal would change a lot, like if he goes to the 49ers, he goes to Washington, either way, either coast he goes to, that changes completely what we're saying here about Dallas being a top 3 team. But I think a lot of people are going to start realizing, especially with this Dak deal, quarterbacks are starting to realize how much power they have again. There was a dull period in the NFL where quarterbacks just kind of played and didn't do a whole lot. Tom Brady, was he might be the reason for this, honestly. Yeah. Tom Brady was the role model. He was taking less money to stay with New England so they could keep making runs. He leaves, and all of a sudden, Deshaun Watson wants out. Russell Wilson has started saying, hey, look, I'm getting my brains beat in here. Pete, what are we going to do? And there's a very good chance he's traded out of here too. So I think a lot of teams, we're going to start seeing that. A lot of teams value their quarterbacks, listen to their quarterbacks more, start bringing them in more on personnel decisions. The era of the quarterback has just begun, which is crazy to think how much passing has become over the last 10 years, how much more passing we have. You think, oh, the era of the quarterback's already happened. No. The era of the quarterback is just beginning. And how important they are, especially when you get a young quarterback getting that big deal, getting ready to get paid. Lamar Jackson. And I will add that on just as a Ravens fan. Lamar, listen to me. Do not take less money. You are in a position of need. You are in a position of want. You have all of the power here. Okay? Get your bag. And if they don't pay you, walk out the door and go get paid, because the Ravens will tell you, every team will tell you, hey, look, it's time. Work with us so we can win. It's a business, brother. It's a
moment
business.
You get injured, they don't care about you.
Look at Dak Prescott, right? Yep. Dak Prescott, how many people were talking about Dak Prescott when he was hurt, including the team? Now, Dak got paid, thankfully. That doesn't always happen.
The 11th hour.
Yep, does not always happen. So,
yeah.
Talking about caring about something big. March Madness. What in the world is going on?
I mean, as a Duke fan.
We're in March. Oh, God, you're a Duke fan. I almost forgot. Oh, I love Duke. So, it's my Mike Krzyzewski. So, March Madness is here. We're already starting to get to the conference playoffs, the conference tournaments to find out who the guaranteed seeds are. Duke. Speaking of Duke, they did win their game last night. But honestly, I can tell you very closely. I'm a college basketball fan. I had no idea where we were in the season. There have been so many games canceled. I watch Maryland. Maryland's offense is at an all-time high right now. But I could care less, man. There's no fans in the stands. Like I said, a bunch of the games are canceled. We don't even know if they're going to get through March Madness at this point. What is going on that has made so many people lost interest in one of the not only biggest sporting events, but one of the biggest gambling events of the year?
It is. This is one of the weirdest years. I think college basketball, while people love their schools and they're attached to them or whatever, people will still watch if the blue bloods, the rest of them, right? If their school is one of the blue bloods, but the other blue bloods are in there, they're in it, right? If there's a Kentucky, if there's a Duke, if there's a UNC, like people are going to typically care about that. Let me just read. Let me read the top 10 in men's college basketball right now, okay? Gonzaga, who you can argue has been a staple for however long their coach has been there, right? They have been fantastic for years. Baylor, who I'm again shocked they've come back after the death penalty they essentially suffered after wasn't it a murder from one of their players like a decade or 15 years ago, whatever that was.
Yep.
Illinois has not been relevant since they had the trio of Williams, Deron Williams, the kid with the headband, and then hair. I can't even Luther Head. It was Luther Head, Deron Williams, and I can't remember the other guy. Like they haven't been relevant forever. Michigan, shout out to Juwan Howard, coach of the year, in my opinion. Let's go put that out there.
I'm with you on that. Michigan's had a very, very good year, including a back-to-back set of wins against them. And Maryland's not a great team. They're probably going to be somewhere like an 8 to 10 seed.
Yeah.
But a back-to-back win against any team, like night after night, is fantastic. And they had one of those earlier this year.
Agreed. Then we have Iowa at number 5, right? Luca Garza, I get it. It's probably going to be the AP player of the year for the men's side. Luca Garza is literally constructed like Frankenstein if he were an NBA 2K player. He is a fantastic player. But the way he is built, Tyler Hansbrough was fun to watch because he was crazy and he was yelling, and like Garza, as good as he is, you can't really get behind his game unless you're probably born in Iowa and went to Iowa. Alabama, okay, you got an SEC school, but they care more about football. Houston, okay. Arkansas
is back. Yep.
Ohio State, West Virginia. Right?
Here's my problem with all this. Even with the names you're listing off, we didn't have March Madness last year. Everything's been off this year. I think the scheduling conflicts and the cancellation of a lot of these games affected a lot of people watching. Because whenever you take a set schedule away from somebody, again, we can compare this to content creation.
Yeah.
The second you take a schedule away from a content creator, he immediately loses viewership based on the people don't know when to find him. The same, or him or her, sorry. The same thing can be said about college basketball. You're already fighting against pro sports. College basketball, once you lose that schedule, you lose the ability of going, okay, well, where the hell are they playing at? When are they playing? Like, what? I'm home all the time. When can I watch these games? College football didn't have as much of a problem with this, even though they had a ton of games canceled, because all of their games always happen on Saturday. Like everyone knows Saturday is college football. College basketball is played throughout the week, all over the place. There were day games this year, like in the middle of the season, just like 12 o'clock games just to keep people on travel schedules. It's really hard. And again, I'm going to blame this almost fully on the pandemic. Okay. So I don't think college basketball is in a lull. If you watch some of these games, there are some very, very talented players right now playing on the floor. I do believe that it's all based on schedule, out of mind. Like I can't watch my team. I think March Madness is going to see a decline in viewership, but I think it comes back strong in 2022 too. It's just such a weird year for them. And again, they're trying to do their best to be politically correct by keeping campus closed. But how do you keep campus closed but keep the kids there playing basketball but not doing classes? Like they're taking virtual classes on campus, but they're isolated with the team. Like that's not what college basketball is. Like they're missing the entire college experience. So yeah. I think all of that kind of lumps in to what's going on with college basketball right now and why a lot of us aren't even thinking about it.
For sure. I think another great point too, because I love what you brought about the schedule, because like Duke didn't play for like 30 or 40 days at one point. And
Right.
so I was like, well, I'm checking out because, that screws them over.
Right.
Think about the most exciting player in college basketball right now. Again, I'm not talking about Frankenstein over there in Iowa, right? Again, great player, just not a lot of sexy things about his game. The most exciting player in college basketball is Kade Cunningham, who plays for OK State. And guess what their problem is? They're banned from playing in the tournament. So the best player in college basketball, we cannot even watch play in the tournament this year. There is no reason to be excited for March Madness unless you are an alum or just have a massive passion for these universities, because there are no major players. Even if you're not at a blue blood school, like there's not a guy that we can really get behind to be like, man, I can't wait to watch X player dominate the tournament this year, or I can't wait to see what Kade Cunningham can do with OK State. Can he take them into the Final Four this year, make an Elite Eight run or whatever it might be? We don't have that right now. And college basketball is driven by player personality, and we don't have it this year. So it definitely hurts it.
I'm going to bring one more thing into this, because I just did like a quick top 100 players by class. I do think that the influx, again, with the scheduling issues already on top of this, the influx of the fact that a lot of the best players this year are freshmen and sophomores, I think really does hurt viewership a little bit. I think when you get to the junior class, and I'm not saying like they're all going to the NBA, but once you get to a junior class, I think you have that feel of who the best players are, with the exception of the hardcore fans who know like all the prospects coming in. If you're just watching college basketball because your favorite team is the college that's nearby, like if you have a freshman on the team, unless he gets major media attention, you don't really know him until year 3. So a lot of these players, even some of the best players in the world right now in college basketball, are freshmen and sophomores and not getting a ton of media attention because, I mean, honestly, it's not very compelling stuff going on right now, unfortunately, especially with the pandemic. Everything I see on SportsCenter with the pandemic is like, hey, this person overcame the pandemic now. Like they're still leaning on the pandemic as like the lead story. So it's really tough to market a lot of these teams. One player it's easy to market, though. Real easy to market. Let's talk about it. Blake Griffin signs a 2-year deal, I believe it was, at least through the end of this season with the Nets. And I talked about this a little bit. I did a TikTok on this, just going over the impact would be. He is not Blake Griffin of years past. We talked about this before. I don't think he's dunked a basketball in a year and a half, right? That doesn't mean he's a bad player. And a motivated Blake Griffin is not what we saw in the Pistons the last couple of years before he was hurt. We saw a frustrated Blake Griffin that does not like to lose. That has followed him around his entire career. He does not like to lose. Even to the point of, I think one of the highlights of him was tearing off his jersey, walking off the court at one point. I think he provides an immediate impact for the Nets, who are looking for an inside presence on the offensive side of the floor. They've got a lot of ball spacers. They've got a lot of guys that can slash or work the outside. They don't really have too many people inside. They've got DeAndre Jordan, who at this point in his career is not an offensive presence on the inside. They've got Jeff Green, who's never really been an offensive presence on the inside. So what do you think Blake Griffin does for the I'm going to call them the New York Nets again, the Brooklyn Nets, for the rest of this season and into the playoffs where they're going to be a top 3 seed?
Man, honestly, not a lot. I don't see Blake Griffin doing a ton for them. I think he's going to be situational initially for them. I think he'll make a rotational play as they get closer to the postseason. I think they know Blake Griffin's a dude that is super talented, but is also coming off having like, Blake Griffin has played more than 75 games. I looked it up the other day. I think he's played more than 75 games like twice in his entire career, if I remember correctly. Like it's not a ton. Blake Griffin's also old now. He's getting ready to turn 32 in a couple of days. If I'm Steve Nash, I'm running a lot of sets that are pick and pop for Blake Griffin. I'm not doing anything that's making Blake Griffin drive in and be super athletic and have to sort of, take high impact on his knees. I'm letting Blake Griffin sit from like an 18 to a 22 foot sort of like swing pattern all across the top of the key and all around the sides. Like I'm going to let him shoot some long jumpers. I'm going to let him shoot some threes. The good news for Blake Griffin is once Kevin Durant is back, whenever that may be, you have Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant as your 3 go-to scorers. You do not have to do anything other than grab 5 to 6 rebounds a game and contribute about 10 to 12 points per game. He's going to get so many open looks, especially if they put him in any packages on the court with Joe Harris too. There is no shot that Blake Griffin is getting anywhere near a top 3 defender being put on him in the game. No shot. So Blake Griffin, I think, is going to have a fruitful experience in Brooklyn, but I don't think they're going to put him in heavy minutes, especially early on. I think they're going to ease him into the lineup and let him figure out the flow. Maybe he gets more time now because Kevin Durant's out, and they can run sort of a weird lineup with him in there as a 3 or a hybrid 4. But I don't expect a lot from Blake Griffin personally.
I expect him to start with 15 to 20 a game. 15 to 20 minutes a game, possibly more filling in for Durant. But if we're talking about a healthy Nets team, 15 to 20 minutes a game in the regular season where Nash is going to keep him fresh. And I think that moves up to about 25 minutes in the playoffs. I really do. I think he has a significant presence for them in the playoffs. And here's why. Up until the last 2 years, he averages over 5 assists a game. At his best, he was averaging close to 7. He is still one of the top facilitators inside out in the NBA. He has very, very good pass vision. And you're right, they're not going to put a top defender on him. But I want to give you a lineup that they're going to be able to run out in the playoffs, and I want you to tell me who matches up with this. Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin.
Oh, it's a small ball 5.
It's a small ball 5. That is an offensive powerhouse, especially because Griffin can shoot outside. He has not lost that shot. He can shoot outside. He can work inside. And even if he doesn't have to jump in the playoffs, if he's still fresh, they can work inside out with him and have Harris, Harden, and Durant just waiting. That's something you can't guard. And yes, he is a defensive liability for the most part if you put a big on him. If he gets a guy like Giannis on him, he's going to have a problem holding on to him. He gets a guy like Embiid on him, he's not going anywhere near Embiid being able to guard Embiid. Okay, Embiid, matter of fact, with the exception of DeAndre Jordan, this team is going to struggle if they have to face the 76ers. They're going to have to outscore them because they're not going to stop Embiid in the offensive side. That being said, that 5 can outscore anybody in the East and probably most teams in the West if fully healthy. And that's what they're going to try to do. They've made no doubts about it. They are an offensive juggernaut. That's what's going to win them a championship this year. Not the fact that, TLC and DeAndre Jordan can stop some people once in a while.
Yeah, I hear you. My problem with that lineup, though, is anything that has Blake Griffin as being your sole post player there means you are severely limiting yourself from second chance points. And in the playoffs, second chance points are huge. And then obviously the defensive liability. Like Blake Griffin will not get you any rebound. I shouldn't say any. Very many rebounds.
He's going to get some. He's not going to out rebound a good rebounder. A good rebounder is going to box him out every time, especially at this point in his career. I agree with you.
And if they're playing again Milwaukee or Philly, there's no one else really that's going to give them problems. Atlanta won't be sniffing the playoffs by that time, but like even Capella, I think would give him some problems to a degree.
I honestly think they run Milwaukee off the court. I really do. If they put that lineup out there and those guys can go and those guys are healthy, dude, they're gonna run Milwaukee off the court.
Let's see what the buyout market is, though. Let's see what happens in the buyout market.
The way they're constructed now, 100% Milwaukee can make an ad of another shooter or even another. I would love to see Milwaukee run like a 3-4 guy that can defend inside and outside. I would absolutely adore seeing what they could do if they decide.
The big thing, did you see today Lamarcus Aldridge and the Spurs are mutually parting ways?
I did. Yeah, Greg Popovich said it's going to be better for Lamarcus Aldridge. They want to put him in a better position to play. Aldridge apparently is not happy in San Antonio with the way they're using him. And honestly, Pop is using him in a weird way. Like they're using him in like a 1-4 like small ball lineup. And that's not Aldridge's game. Aldridge doesn't want to play center. Aldridge wants to be a 4, which is what Aldridge is. Aldridge is a old school, not even old school because he can shoot. He's a kind of a tweener 4. And I think he's going to do something with a team. He's going to make some team really good, man. with that post presence that he has, he's going to make some team really good when he goes. So I think the Spurs are working with him to try to get him traded.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to release him. I think it's going to have to be a trade because that's too much talent to just let walk. So
100%.
we'll see. But that pretty much marks the end for the Spurs too. I think the Spurs have made a nice little run to about the 5-6 seed. But without LA, man, like I love that team. I love Dejounte Murray. Dejounte Murray is looking more and more like a superstar every day.
Yep.
But Pop is running a small ball team, and Pop doesn't like to run a small ball. Pop likes to have his guys in the middle. So unless they find somebody that, you know, don't get me wrong, I like the Euros they bring in once in a while, but that's not the inside guy he's looking for. So that being said, like I said, I think this Blake Griffin signing for the Nets, just to circle back real quick, I do think it makes them they were already the number 1 seed in my mind. I think it solidifies them as the number 1 seed for the idea that Blake can run their offensive side and DeAndre Jordan can run their defensive side for the time being.
Just hope that for Brooklyn Nets fans, hope that Kevin Durant comes back sooner rather than later. I think I just checked, he's now not playing tomorrow, so he's going to be his 10th consecutive game with a hamstring strain. I think when you have a 7-footer or close to a 7-footer that comes off a major lower leg injury, what you often see is there's the imbalance and there's also the hesitancy, and that leads to whether it's hamstring or calf or quad. There's all these different things that typically happen with pulling something. It can be ankle sometimes too. Steph Curry dealt with that for a long time, even though he's not a 7-footer. I'm going to be interested. I'm going to be watching very closely to see what happens with Kevin Durant, because a healthy Kevin Durant, no one's touching the Nets, not even the Lakers with a healthy roster.
Yep.
But if Kevin Durant is a question mark, it's going to be an interesting story.
And you mentioned that they don't have another post player. Are you forgetting? Are you forgetting the best post player on their roster? 7 to 8 post possessions a game he wants? Kyrie Irving?
Okay, God.
Kyrie Irving, the post god? Are you kidding me?
That pisses me off just thinking about that again. Okay.
Going back to a preseason conversation on Instagram Live with Kevin Durant. Basketball Hall of Fame finalists were announced. Some huge names here, some not so huge names, some fringe names. I'm going to go down the list. I want you to tell me who makes it, who's on the edge. Okay, so 9 finalists. We got an NBA coach, 9th winningest coach, Rick Adelman. We got Chris Bosh of the Raptors and the Heat. We have Michael Cooper from the Lakers from the Showtime era. We have your boy, The Truth, Paul Pierce. We have Bill Russell as a coach. So he's the first ever black NBA head coach, first of all. And I believe, correct, is he in as a player already?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so he would be going in as a player, and he's going in this time as a coach. Right. Villanova coach Jay Wright, 2-time NCAA champion. Yolanda Griffith, 7-time WNBA All-Star and 2-time Olympic gold medalist. 7-time NBA WNBA All-Star and 3-time most valuable player, probably the best lock in this class, Lauren Jackson. And then also Marianne Stanley, NBA Coach of the Year, NCAA National Champion. Out of those names, who makes it in?
God.
Hold on, just real quick. Let me just add in real quick. Sorry. People from the previous finalists that are also in consideration. Lita Andrews, which is a high school coach, Tim Hardaway, Marquez Johnson, Ben Wallace, and Chris Webber.
Got it. Yep. So this is going to be an interesting class. As for people that don't know, I did a little bit of research as I wasn't even sure. You need 18 of 24 votes from the honors committee to be elected into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. So that's sort of how the NBA handles their Hall of Fame selection. Rick Adelman, I think, is a fringe guy. I don't think he gets in his first eligible year, so I'm going to say no to Rick Adelman. Even though he had an incredible run, I just don't think Adelman gets in. Chris Bosh is a shoo-in. There's no shot Chris Bosh isn't getting in my opinion. Michael Cooper, I think, will get in as well. The Showtime Lakers 5-time NBA champion. He's as great of a defensive player as Michael Cooper was in the moments he had in the NBA, and obviously his legacy of a coach, which is not necessarily going to be used here. I still think he gets in just from that. Tim Hardaway, killer crossover. He's fringe for me.
He's not even fringe. I know you wanted to be in because a lot of us love the Hardaway crossover. A lot of us mimicked the Hardaway crossover when we were kids. He's not. No, for me, he's not. He didn't do enough in the NBA. He was always the third, fourth guy on a team. So
Yeah, it kills me, but he ultimately will not make it in, but I want him to be in.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, Marcus Johnson, I think is another guy that's going to be fringe, but I know there's been more of a PR campaign for him recently. ESPN has did a whole thing on him, so I think they're trying to get a groundswell for him because he's a more of an unknown guy. He's still like, I think he's 60 some now, still dunking, which is again like kind of crazy. That's my goal.
I mean,
in
I'm
life.
40 and I'm dunking. So what do you mean?
Donuts. You got Paul Pierce,
Not
aka
wrong.
Taco Meat, aka The Truth. I don't want Paul Pierce to be. I don't think Paul Pierce is a great or was a great NBA player.
You don't say. You just called the man taco meat on the
Man
podcast.
still can't grow a beard. He has a little taco meat on his face.
I
Listen,
know what it means.
I
He's
Paul
making
Pierce.
it in.
Paul
He's
Pierce.
making it in. He was the best player on that Celtics team.
No, he was not.
On that Celtics team, he was. Kevin
No.
Garnett was the second scorer on that team.
Garnett was way more important. I hate Paul Pierce.
Garnett was good. He was the second player to Pierce in that team. Pierce was the guy they put on defensively on every single player.
And
Like
he
I don't
let
listen.
buckets happen.
I'm with you. I don't like Pierce. I don't Pierce post career for me, post playing career has made himself very evident where Paul Pierce stands. Okay, he is not a good person. Like I
Terrible
don't like
teammate.
him. I don't like any of his opinions. All of his opinions are, well, this is what I did, so you should do that. Like I don't need this.
Exactly.
Like there's no evolution in Paul Pierce whatsoever.
Yeah.
Paul Pierce on the court is a Hall of Famer. And on that Celtics squad, I'm with you. Ray Allen was the third scorer. Kevin Garnett was the inside guy. That team, I think that team wins without Garnett. I don't think that team can win without Pierce.
I think they could win without Pierce. I think they can. I think maybe it's how much I hate Paul Pierce.
It could be. It could be because I don't want him in the Hall of Fame either. But I'm trying to look unbiased here, man. Like Paul Pierce is a Hall of Famer, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Paul Pierce, the only good years he had were when he had PG and Ray Allen and Rondo. Rondo bailed him out so much. All the stuff he did in Boston prior to them was bottom of the barrel, chucking up buckets, shooting 30 to 40 times a game. He was a more in shape Antoine Walker for a longer period of time.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? More in shape Antoine Walker? Paul Pierce walks Antoine Walker around the court, man. Paul Pierce, listen to me. Paul Pierce was an inside-outside threat. He could shoot. He could slash. He could play. He was grinder on defense. People do not, you know what? I'm going to really make you mad. You ready for this? Paul Pierce is looked at the same way Pippen was.
Do not know.
Pierce is looked at the same way Pippen was. He's not on Pippen's level defensively. But he is good defensively, and people don't give him the credit that he deserves for what he did defensively, especially with those Celtics teams. Okay? Those Celtics teams needed a defensive stopper, and he was that guy. So don't talk to me. This was the age of the NBA where they were moving slowly away from the big man center. And Kevin Garnett was a big part of that. But they still had all those wing guys that could slash in and create inside out opportunities. Paul Pierce was a fantastic defender. He is a better offensive player. He is a terrible analyst. He might be one of the worst analysts going now, but he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I genuinely hope I meet Paul Pierce at some point in my life, and all I'm going to say to him is, they don't love you like that. You thought you was Kobe. That's all I'm going to say to him. Shout out to
And
Draymond Green.
he's going to look at you and go, "Aren't you Mervin?"
I'm going to say, now I'm the guy that blocked James Harden.
And you're the one, and you're going to look down and go, "Okay, sorry." Let's go to the person who deserves this the most on the list. I'm going to bring her back up, Lauren Jackson.
Yeah.
Who is unbelievable. One of the best women's basketball players to ever grace the world. Okay, 7-time All-Star, 3-time MVP, led the I forget what team she was on. Wasn't she on the
She was a Storm or Sue Bird.
It was the Storm of Sue Bird, exactly. Dude, this woman is as close to complete voting as you get. If she doesn't get 24 votes, it's a sham. 100% deserves to be in. First time through. She might be the only one on the list that is with no doubts for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Bosh is no doubts for me as well. Lauren
Someone
Jackson
will find a reason. Someone will find a reason for Bosch not to be in.
which will frustrate me. But Lauren Jackson absolutely deserves. I mean, we're talking about when she's an Australian, so in the WNBL, how great she was there, then coming to America and how dominant she was here, winning titles, winning MVPs. She has been a phenomenal figure for women's sports. So she, without a doubt, should be a 24 of 24 on that. I will caveat, I am pissed that Penny Taylor isn't up right now. Penny Taylor, the wife of Diana Taurasi, who is the greatest WNBA player of all time, in my opinion. Right. Penny Taylor won 3 WNBA championships, all with the Phoenix Mercury. She's an assistant coach with them right now. She was a WNBL MVP. She also was a FIBA MVP the year they won. I think when Australia won that year. So, like, I don't understand how someone with her stature has not gotten put up at this point. I'm hoping maybe after Lauren Jackson goes in, people start having more of appreciation for Australian women's basketball. And then next thing you know, she becomes, propped up in the next few years. But I'm voting for Penny Taylor over Paul Pierce every single day of the week, personally. But,
just one last shout out. Yolanda Griffith deserves to be in 100%. As well. Yeah, what she did with the Monarchs is, look it up. Do your research if you haven't. She deserves to be there too. Let's get into the last thing for this week in sports, and I'm going to let you lead this one because I tweeted about this without mentioning names, and you can mention names if you want. I don't think he deserves that kind of airtime, but we had a NBA player on a live stream. More athletes are getting into live streaming, more content creation now. We know about Blake Snell is huge on Twitch now. Trevor May, pitcher for the New York Mets, is absolutely monstrous on Twitch. How do these celebrities keep allowing racial slurs to slip out on live streams?
I think it's very simple, right? If a word is part of your vocabulary, if it's something that is in your vocabulary or wheelhouse that you might have, when your filter goes off, you're going to allow these words to come through. So obviously, you said you didn't want to say the name of the player. I absolutely do because I want to drag him. Meyers Leonard, he's for the Heat, right? I don't even remember. He was Blazers for a long time.
Heat. Well, he might not be with the Miami Heat anymore after this, but he's with them currently.
Yeah, he's on like an indefinite leave, I think, right now that the team put him on, if I remember correctly. But
while the investigation is ongoing, correct?
Yeah, I think anyone here who's played Call of Duty knows that especially if you played Warzone, right? The death comms you hear from people after you kill them are unbelievable. Every single night that I play personally, I'm hearing racial slurs, I'm hearing homophobic slurs, I'm hearing all types of things that are popping through from people that are turning off their filter and speaking in a way that they feel they can speak in the comfort or confines of their own home. Why? Because that is who they are. Those words are not coming out because they're angry or something of that nature. When you were angry, you were saying something in the truest form of what you typically believe. You have filters that are within your psyche to help you say, no, I probably shouldn't say that, or like, I shouldn't say that. When you're angry, the things that you often have and store inside are what come out. Meyers Leonard was streaming Call of Duty with a couple of other popular streamers, basically used a slur for Jewish people, a very demonstrative slur for Jewish people. And for me, saying it is terrible. But the pattern of sort of what has happened since then has been frustrating for me. Basically, you can go find the clip if you want to, but what happens is you see him, he's starting to say something. He stops himself. There's like a weird second and a half where he's sort of like stumbling through, trying to figure out like in his head, like, what should I say? What should I say here to insult this person? And then he uses a slur. He had the wherewithal to stop himself and then say, you know what? This is still fine to say. I'm also a believer of people know what words mean. This in particular, like obviously not going to use the slur, but this particular slur has had a lot of social controversy recently from Enrique Hernandez, who was a former Dodger and is now playing for the Boston Red Sox. His nickname is the same actual spelling of the slur, but he has an accent mark on the E. And that was really under fire for the beginning of this month, for example. It blew up again. It's blown up a couple of times, but
it blows up every time, correct?
Yeah,
it even blew up. It even blew up at MLB The Show because it's spelled that way in MLB The Show, even though it's pronounced Kike. Yep. So I'll say it's pronounced Kike Hernandez. And he's been very clear that's his nickname. He's not changing his nickname because that's not the connotation of it. So, yeah, agreed. So go ahead. Sorry, I wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, 100%. So it has been enough in the public eye for that to be known of what that essentially is. And I will say it is not the most well known slur in the word or in the world. But in my opinion, if there is a word, right, you hear a word, very few times do you hear a word without a new word without knowing the context behind it, right? If a word is delivered, you are able to then suffice what that context is. So whether Meyers Leonard heard it from someone else and heard it in a derogatory manner and was like, oh, this is okay to say and put it in his memory bank, or he understood the definition or whatnot, you are a grown adult. If you were saying words without knowing the meaning of them, that is still on you. So that is not a cop out. And his apology to me was very much of like, oh, I didn't know. Now I'm educated, and I'm sure this offseason he's going to do some PR campaign to go, overseas to Auschwitz and other concentration camps, and rightfully so, he should, right? Like I think he should. I think anyone who has done a slur, especially to the Jewish community, like you should go see what those people went through. Like you will only get a sliver of what essentially happened because the people aren't there having it actually happen to them now. So like you need to go experience and see what those people went through. Look at the gas chambers, look at the mass graves, and look at those things to understand like the word you use is hurting so many people. You cannot do that. Be an adult, understand the words you were saying, remove those things out of your vocabulary. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be live streaming.
What would Facebook do if you said that word?
Good Lord, I'm gone. Absolutely gone.
Twitch should ban him.
100%.
Twitch should ban him permanently. Just like they should ban some other streamers that have let that word come out recently.
Agreed.
I'm going to be very clear. Meyers Leonard stopped before he said it. He thought. His mind moved. You saw it happen before he spoke. Even if you don't know the meaning of the word, he knew he was trying to say something negative. Okay? And yeah, you want to call him a loser. You want to call your opponent loser, whatever. You can call him whatever you want. But that's a very specific word he just randomly threw out there. Okay? I'm not Jewish. So, you know what? I'm not the one that gets to tell him he's right or wrong. I very much believe that. I very much believe that, you know what? The Jewish community gets to watch his sham of an apology, by the way, absolute sham of an apology, and they get to make the decision. But I will say this. I stream on Twitch, and that crap should not be on there. That's absolute bullcrap. And the fact that it happens so often now that it's just like, we're to a point where it's like, oh, it's just another day. Just another day. Like, what do we have to do? What do you have to do? You can't be a racist and be a live streamer. It just doesn't work. And for those of you listening to this right now that don't do content creation, specifically live streaming, because obviously on YouTube you can edit things out. No offense to YouTubers, GGB. When you're on a live stream, at some point your real life vocabulary comes into play. And again, normally angry, emotion, something happens. Watch how easy this is. GGB. You know all the racist terms that I know? Here's all the racist terms that I say on a normal basis. You know why I know that? Because I don't say them, and I don't say them on my live stream when I'm angry, okay? It's real easy not to say something. It's very easy. Just keep your stupid mouth shut, all right? Listen to me, Meyers Leonard. I don't care if you're 7 foot tall. I don't care if you're a celebrity. I don't care if you play for the Miami Heat. I don't care if you're friends with the Jewish community. I don't care what you are. You are an absolute racist. Okay? And the apology that should come out from you shouldn't be, I don't know the word. It should be, I made a mistake. This is something that I use in my normal life that I shouldn't use. I fully understand that, and I'm getting help for it. Like GGB said, why don't you take your little ass over to Auschwitz where people were tattooed, they were cremated, they were gassed, they were rained on with acid. Why don't you take something over there for a little sensitivity training? Maybe they should take you over there and lock you up in one of them for a night. Maybe you'd have a little respect, because that's what it is. It's a lack of respect for an entire race. That's what you should do. You should never touch a live stream again. I know how much you love it because I know how much I love it. It should be taken away from you. Go back to being a basketball player for whatever team takes your talent, because that's what's going to get you back on the court, not your humanity, obviously. To go back on a court and just do that. And keep yourself away from anywhere where your mouth opens in front of public again, all right? That's what you should do, Meyers Leonard. That's the punishment you should have. End of story.
Man, I think the other thing too that came to me is one thing I always hate is when an apology happens from a written format after something has been done from a visual format. In my opinion, if you are doing something like a live stream or a video and you do something that is wildly offensive and is deemed wildly offensive and is offensive to people to the point where they are saying like, this is not okay, why would you do this, to then say the easy route of putting an apology out on pen and paper, or not in pen and paper in this case, I guess on a digital, like, asset,
or having your manager do it, or having your PR person write it up.
100%.
Because that's what it was. That's what it
100%.
was.
To me, that is not okay. If you do something offensive in a video, visual, live stream format, whatever it essentially is, you need to apologize in that same or an applicable format. There should not be an opportunity for you to have something handwritten, have something prepared. No, get in front of a camera, live stream it, make it a video if you need to edit it down because you can't do that for whatever reason. Get on camera. You are an NBA player also, so you have no excuse to say, oh, I'm not comfortable on camera. You're live streaming multiple times a week. You're in front of a camera doing interviews,
press conferences, everything. Yeah. There's no problem answering questions after they've won a game with a press conference, sitting there on Zoom with a mask on. Plenty of those going on. So yeah, get your little ass out and answer some questions, or get your little ass out and speak. Because the little PR, hi, I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't know what the word was. You knew what the word was. Shut up. No one wants to hear your baby mouth going, I didn't know what the word was. We don't care. No one cares. If I said the N-word and was like, I don't know what the N-word is. I mean, come on. You know how you know it's a bad word? We won't say it. I mean, I had to say Kike, and I had to literally in my brain say Kike in my mind 4 or 5 times because I know how close to an offensive word it is. I thought about that the same way you thought in your mind before you decided to say the word live on the stream. Get out and apologize. Stop. Get out for your PR guy. Get out for your lawyer. I don't care if it's your Miami Heat handler. I don't care if it's the guy that holds your hand because you can't be out in public because you apparently use these terms everywhere else too. So I don't care who it is. Get in front of a camera and say you're sorry. Hell, maybe in front of the press. Maybe let them ask some questions about your. Well, how often do you use this word, good sir? So let's move on. Let's move on to some more happy times. Some video games. There's some sports video game news going on. I want to start off with Ultimate Rivals. They've already have a game out called Ultimate Rivals: The Rink, which is a hockey game for Apple iOS. It was only for Apple. It was not for Android. It wasn't out on Steam. But it is a arcade hockey title where they have a ton of athletes from all sports. So this is not just hockey players. This was like basketball, NBA players, MLB players, race car drivers, soccer
the
players.
iOS one?
Yes, this is the.
Okay,
so
I remember the commercial. Yeah.
So this is The Rink. The new one coming out. That they're working on now is called Ultimate Rivals: The Court, and they've signed Tim Kitzrow, the voice of NBA Jam, to be a part of it. They are live streaming some of the alpha last night, and I was watching it. They had Shaquille O'Neal, they had Megan Rapinoe, they had Giancarlo Stanton in it. I don't know how they got the license for all these players. I don't know how they're doing it I don't think there's an MLB license or anything like that. They literally just had these players. And the cool thing was they were playing NBA Jam-esque basketball, but like Giancarlo Stanton had a bat and was hitting the basketball like across the court as a pass, or like his dunks, or like the dunks from Megan Rapinoe was like a bicycle kick from above the rim. And there's like contact to block him and everything. Like there's counter mechanisms for everything. It is like NBA Jam on steroids is what it is. Or whatever the non-performance enhancing drug is that makes it better. It looks really fun. And there's a hole right now for really fun arcade games in sports gaming. I sent you the trailer. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it yet, which is okay because this game was nobody's radar until recently. What do you think about an introduction back into the NBA Jam world, especially with the legendary Tim Kitzrow at the helm?
Yeah, I love the fact that he's back, and like you sold me on it. I'll watch the trailer after this. To me, I think we need more of a dive into arcade sports, but I want arcade sports with depth at the same time. So that's a hard ask. But yeah, I'm 100% down for something like that because again, we're in a weird world where like our simulation sports are going away from the simulation aspects and going into the it's they're blurring the lines between simulation and arcade, but they're staying within simulation with like arcade effects. I'd rather just have an arcade experience to really just like turn my brain off, play for different variances of time, kind of like Rocket League. I go and play Rocket League for anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes at a time, and then I'm good, and then I'll come back to it, every couple of days or whatever. I want something like that. I want more things like that, honestly.
The other game that this reminded me of that did this recently was Battleground, WWE 2K Battleground.
Oh yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think Battleground had a huge reception when it came out because it was still kind of on that stigma of WWE 2K and them not getting a simulation game out this year. But Battleground had the same setup where they had like a bunch of wrestlers and some of them were locked behind progress. It looks like this is the same thing. There was like when I was watching the player select screen on their live stream. It was a huge like wall of characters, and I'm talking massive wall of characters because the dude was looking for Shaquille O'Neal. He's one of the devs. He was looking for Shaquille O'Neal to unlock him, and he was going like hundreds of players through trying to find Shaq's face. Like it was really impressive what they were able to do in terms of the depth of character and even the depth of play. There are different modes for it, and again. It was for iOS with the Rink was the original one. This one doesn't have a release date yet. I'm hoping they get a release date soon. If you do a search for Ultimate Rivals on Twitter, follow their Twitter, man. Like they are live streaming their alpha at nights. If you're really interested in it, they're answering questions. Like they have dev teams just sitting there answering questions like about it. I'm actually going to be working with them soon. Hopefully I'm kind of talking to them back and forth about maybe being able to stream an alpha too. It looks so fun, man. That's why I brought it up because we don't have enough fun in sports games. We have like the yard or like the city, but even those are kind of like sweaty, kind of like competitive modes. So, talking about arcade, Retromania, which is the spiritual, I will say, they say official, I'm going to say spiritual successor to WWF WrestleFest, an arcade game, which is held in very high esteem for those that played it. I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. WrestleFest was a game that had Mr. Perfect, Earthquake, Hulk Hogan in kind of an arcade back and forth. Retromania has a lot of indie stars. So John Morrison, before he signed to WWE, is in this. Nick Aldis, I believe they had the Road Warriors because they were free agents at the time. The Blue World Order, Tommy Dreamer, like a bunch of just indie guys in this. I think it's 16 total. Plus they're doing DLC. Bunch of different venues, same arcade gameplay. There's finishers. It's just fun wrestling gameplay. It's out on Steam right now. It got delayed on console because it had certification issues. It's their first game they've ever made, so they had some certification problems and got it sent back to them. So hopefully out on console soon. Again, another just beat 'em up, fun game. GGB. We're missing these. We're missing these everywhere, man.
I need more of them. I want more. I know it's obviously not like the most fruitful category, so that's why companies maybe aren't into it as much. But I'm always for stuff like that.
And then we talk about some of the AAA things going on. MLB The Show is having their first feature premiere tonight. As you listen to this, it will be Thursday, March 12th. If you're listening to this podcast later on, March 11th. You can go back into their VODs to check that out on Twitch or on their YouTube. Or come to my VOD because I'm going to be breaking it down afterwards just for that. Anyway, so they're going to be talking about their pitching and their hitting. And what they did was they took a lot of questions after the tech test on their pitching and hitting. They've announced the pinpoint pitching mechanic, which we talked about before. A lot of 2K involved in that, but I think it's going to be more of a competitive function than anything. So it's not easy. It's not easy to pull off. It is in the aspect that 2K was just like circling around. This is very pinpoint accuracy. You have to be very pinpoint accurate. And their new hitting, which is going to be upgrading the perfect perfects, which were a huge thing for a lot of people. They think perfect should be almost a base hit every time. They're going to explain those better. They're going to explain some of the different ways the engine has changed, like hitting high. I think hitting high pitches has changed a little bit. Being able to not foul as much. The check swing mechanic, which everybody at some point saw was broken. They're going to talk about all that. So What's the one thing you want to hear from MLB The Show about their hitting and pitching tomorrow in this feature premiere? By the way, the feature premiere is at 7:00 Eastern on their official, on the Sony San Diego Twitch channel and on their YouTube and on their Facebook. I think they're streaming all three places. It is pre-recorded, I believe. I don't think they're doing it live. I think it's going to be pre-recorded. So what's the one thing you want to hear from Sony San Diego about these two aspects?
The biggest thing for me on hitting and hitting and pitching in that game is, I know this is a conversation that always goes in 50 different ways because everyone has their own opinion. When we play online, I want just less RNG. I want to know that when I'm hitting a perfect, or if I'm hitting, great contact, I got the bat right on top of the ball. Like, I need to know there is less RNG involved in that because I'm doing a user input. Same thing with pitching. Pitching last year was wild to me. I know they patched it a couple of times, but like there were so many times where I was throwing with whatever mechanic I was using. I use typically the meter pitching because, don't hate me, I'm old.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
When I would use it and I would get, green, and I would hit everything where I needed to be, and it was the right amount of effort and the right amount of accuracy, and it would throw it like 4 feet out, and I'm like, huh?
They did mention that very specifically in a short Q&A today, that not only was the pinpoint, the precision pitching going to be new, but that meter and analog pitching was going to be different.
Okay.
In that it would be more accurate if you were more in control. So that was one of the things they mentioned. Very, very. I'm glad you brought that up because I know that I knew you were a meter guy. They brought up that they would be either more accurate or there was going to be a mechanic around it to allow you to be more accurate. So the biggest thing was curveballs last year. A lot of people threw curveballs online and they hung up almost every time. So I'm glad you mentioned it because that's definitely an issue that I want to see addressed as well.
Yeah. Less RNG is a big thing for me, and like I get RNG still needs to be involved, but less of it for sure, especially in a competitive setting.
And this brings me to clarity, transparency when it comes to these sports games. We've asked this for a long time. NBA 2K21 announced over the weekend during their $250,000 My Team final that the lock-ins, I talked about season 5 being the golden age of heroes, the modern age of heroes. The lock-ins for these sets are not going to be players. They're going to be coaches. And this was, a lot of my teamers were upset because obviously coaches are not cards you can actively use. You can use them as modifiers for your players. Two coaches are going to be Phil Jackson with a +10 triangle stats. This will be the first coach in the game, by the way, that has any attributes that affect the triangle strategy. And Greg Popovich, who already has a card in game that does +4 defense. This card will do +10 to defensive stats. The issue that I have now is that they have not mentioned whether stats can go above 99. And at the time of the year where they just announced the first 2 99 overall cards in Dark Matter Michael Jordan and Dark Matter Zion Williamson, with a lot of 99 ratings already, will these +10 coaches mean anything in 2 weeks when a lot more 99s are going to be out? And I'm starting to believe that they will. I'm starting to believe that the 99s are not a cap on ratings right now. I believe they can go higher than that because 2K very specifically is one of those games that has a lot of once they hit 99s, they tend to have a lot of 99s. And even last year, their Galaxy Opals, which were the highest cards last year, had multiple cards that were 90 of the same person. So like there were multiple Michael Jordans that were 99. And their ratings were very similar. So it makes you wonder whether if it's just badges that they're upgrading or is there going to be ratings above 99? And I ask that 2K gives transparency on the idea before they allow lock-ins. So apparently these coaches are going to be available starting next Friday. All the cards available to lock in will be up and ready to go. By next Friday, I really hope 2K steps up and says, hey, these coaches are not going to push you above 99 or they will push you above 99 because to lock in, you're looking at probably 2+ million MT, which is a very hefty number, especially when you're not buying currency. As we talked about in previous, that's a big lock-in for coaches that don't do anything. What say you, GGB, about transparency and especially in card collecting modes?
Oh my God. When you said this, it immediately brought me back to what happened with FIFA. And I guess it kind of impacted Madden in a way too, but there was a FIFA lawsuit 2-3 ish years ago, if I remember correctly. Might have been around FIFA 18 or 19. Maybe I may be missing, but basically there was a lawsuit stemming from there were a lot of ratings that were like 104, 105, and
Mm-hmm.
people found out through doing like literally testing in the game that being 105 in a category and being 99 in a category were actually the same exact thing.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, Madden had a couple that went above 100, and they started to pull those back as well in a similar time frame. So for me, it's okay. One, I agree with you on the transparency, but with the transparency, if the ratings even go above 100, does that have an actual impact on the gameplay, on how they're doing something, or is everything capped at a 99? So it's just a visual thing for you.
Right.
I 100%, I'm all for companies like, look, if any mode that is telling you to, not maybe telling you, but saying you can pay real world dollars to increase your chances or get a better team or whatever that essentially may be, there needs to be 100% transparency. The pack odds are great. Sometimes they are changed in every game going up and down. But people need to know what they're spending for, what they're grinding for, and if doing X equals Y, or if doing X is just all for naught at that point.
Speaking of pack odds, I just want to bring this up very quickly. NBA 2K had the packs that had Zion and Michael Jordan, the first ever Dark Matter 99 cards. They upped the pack odds 5 days later.
I saw Troy Dan spent
7.425 million VC before he pulled his first Dark Matter card over the weekend. And that equals out to $1,600. And let me be very clear, at the time, it was an 8% chance to pull a 92 plus player. When new packs came out on Monday and the Pantheon packs were still there, albeit with moments cards in them, they added new cards to them. The pack odds went up to 15% for a 92 plus. And here's where my problem is with this. Over the weekend, this happened at Halloween too, if you remember correctly. They put out Possessed packs with Tracy McGrady in it. And then once everybody had pulled all the cards on Friday night, over the weekend, they put Vince Carter, James Harden, LeBron James in. Immediately getting people that like, hey, well, I would have waited to pull for those guys in the same packs. I don't mind putting new packs out, but when you do something different to the pack, that changes things. So they upped it to 15%. Imagine maybe Troy Dan doesn't have to spend $1,600 for the Dark Matter next time. I pulled a Michael Jordan after the 15% got put in, after spending $250 myself Friday night, which is fine. I mean, that's budgeted money I had, by the way.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm not, if you pay money, I'm cool with it. A lot of content creators do as part of their content. So not a big deal. My thing is, they did this when other packs came out. They put new packs out that were VC only, and those packs were at 8% for 92 plus, but there are new cards in those packs. Whereas these packs were not, and you could get the Dark Matter in either one of the packs. And you just magically upgraded the pack odds to 15%. And that's, again, upgrading pack odds. Dude, I'm cool with that. Upgrade the pack odds. But then what about all these people that pulled these packs over the weekend that didn't have that 15%? And now the other thing you're doing is, by doing that, you're taking those Dark Matter cards and immediately tanking their value. Everyone was paying 1.5 million, 2 million MT for Michael Jordan or Zion over the weekend. Now, all of a sudden, because there's more influx, now they're down to 500, 600. So the VC you spent on these, the real money you spent on these, immediately loses value because you're artificially pushing more of these cards into the market. I hate to say this because I've enjoyed 2K a lot with my team this year. I think their content has been very good. But this is another shady practice that needs to, again, transparency is always key with this kind of stuff. And to undercut the market with a 7% pack increase without telling anybody, that's a shady practice. And that is not something you can do because somebody, some eager beaver researcher, maybe me, is going to see those pack odds go increase and go, wait a second, I just pulled $200 of these packs. Troy Dan pulled $1,600 of these packs. Why weren't they 15% 5 days ago?
Yeah. It's a it's a tough one. I think a lot of these companies have like economists, and I would say, in fairness, 2K isn't the only company that does anything to undercut the market. Madden is notorious for doing it.
100%.
Whether it's through, they'll do theirs often through, a different style of currency, which then devalues all types of things, or dropping a +1 overall that then does XYZ, or strategically dropping Michael Vick at a certain period of time. Like, there are all these different methods, but I 100% agree. I think anytime there are real world dollars in play for digital assets, transparency is always going to be the thing. And if you're going to do something where, the odds are changing from, 7-8% to 15%, nearly doubling at that point, there has to be transparency to people in the upfront of, hey, there will be a greater chance to get these, but if you get them in this pack, there is some benefit to going for the ones that have the 8% value, right? Or the 8% chance. There needs to be some inherent added value for people to go spend early rather than wait, a week or whatever, right? Yes, you get early access to the card or whatever it potentially may be, but you obviously have a harder chance to do it.
Right.
People need to know there is some reason for me to pull now, or I can pull later, and they need to be able to make that choice up front, right? Go early, go big, or wait, have a higher chance, maybe spend less money, but I don't get XYZ with that. There needs to be something there.
100%. If they were going to do 15%, they knew they were going to do 15%. I'm pretty sure they should have said, hey, look, these packs are going to be 8% on release. We're going to up the odds 15% on Monday. That's what they should have done. And I know they'll never do that because, again, you have economists that would tank the weekend market or the weekend content, but they absolutely should. And I think that would be a huge olive branch towards players of being like, hey, look, we're gonna be the card collecting mode that tells you exactly what you're doing. We're gonna tell you exactly what we're gonna do. And 2K does this, FIFA does this, Madden does this. They make money off confusion. Confusion earns money in a lot of these modes. If you don't know what you're doing, you get frustrated. Chances are, if you don't turn the game off and you want to keep playing, you're going to throw some money into it to try to get better.
I would even like to see them do like a growing percentage, right? Maybe the packs are for 7 days, and day 1 the packs are 8% odds, and by day 7 they're going to go up to like 16% or 15% or like whatever that number may essentially be. That way,
right.
Up front, if I pull a day 1, it's an 8% chance. If I wait till day 3, 4, 5, it's going to be this. Do something like that where, again, to your point, up front that if you're pulling day 1, your chances are lower. But if you pull last day, your chances are higher. They're still going to get tons of people that are impulse purchasing at the end because they know the value is going to be higher there. Just be upfront, be transparent.
Agreed. Which it's really sad because I think 2K's done a killer job with content this year, and I look forward to more of it. I just wish it was all nice and tidy. We don't have to like pull open a rock to find out what the practices are. So that's it for us this week. We have talked about a whole bunch of really cool things. I have once again carried the episode because GGB has problems focusing. And I have my huge crystal skull of water where he is drinking out of a bottle because he can't drink out of a cup, little baby sippy cup.
I have a bowl full of Oreos.
Bowl of Oreos? Are they just normal Oreos?
Double stuff. We're not
double
amateurs
stuff
over here.
What?
Yeah.
Double stuff is a bad ratio. Normal Oreo is the best ratio to cookie to cream. Don't get me into this. I'm a snack guru. You are just, a simpleton.
Well, that is the end of this podcast. Do me a favor this week. Whenever you listen to this, go find Mills' most recent tweet. Go to reply to it and just type ratio and then leave. That's all I want you to do.
Please do not. That's the worst trend. That's a worst trend. But
type
where
ratio.
can they follow you while we're at it?
At GoodGameBro on your favorite social media. Mills, where can they find you?
And I am at Mills Twitch on TikTok, Instagram, and on the Twitter. Also, twitch.tv/Mills every weeknight besides Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
You can also catch him on old WWE episodes under the moniker of Mr. Sacco, a.k.a. Mick Foley. I'm GoodGameBro.
I hate you.
The man over there with the hand puppet is Mr. Sacco himself. Leave us 5-star rating. We'll catch you on the next one.
Ciao.